Hello and welcome to Sovereign RPG. I am Sovereign, and in today's guide we're going to be talking about pets, everything to do with pets and which is the best pet for your class, which is best for PvE and PvP. Please remember that this is all my own opinion. You may think some pets are better than others. I've done a lot of testing when it comes to which pets I want to use for which circumstances and which situations, but whatever feels best for you, please use them. Now I'll go through some of the options of what you can use, and then we'll go into my opinion on what is the best ones for doing certain types of things. So first we should start off with the most important thing, and that is your charisma stat. Now your charisma stat down here determines which pets you're actually able to tame, and once you have tamed them, be able to summon them up and get them back if they do die. You're going to need a constant charisma stat. Now the best way to do this isn't to be pumping points into charisma. What you want to do is grab all of your pieces of armor, all of your cloaks, all of your rings, all of your necklaces, everything, every piece of armor, and you're going to want to transmute an option transmutation for each of these. And you want to get as much charisma on each piece as possible. Now you're going to want your own stat set. You're going to want your stat set that you're actually using out to go grind and quest and PvP, but have a second set available with all of the charisma stats as high as possible, and that will be able to get you to actually have a pet without wasting any points in the charisma stat at all. And when you want to resummon a different pet, and when you want to bring a pet in, you want to go into a PvP and use a different pet, then you just put the charisma gear on real quick, summon that pet, and put your normal gear back on. This is the best way to do it. Do not waste your points on charisma. This is the way forward. Now let's talk about the actual pets themselves. Now for me, I'm using a pet that I got right at the beginning. I've used the pet all the way through, and this is the rabbit, giving you a movement speed of 3%, increases your movement speed of 3%. Now this is not a good pet. There are much better pets if you want to kill faster. I just like to move around a lot quicker in between the actual kills, and this does help with that. It has a very low charisma requirement, so you can actually just get this pet out as your standard skill no matter what from the beginning. So this is a good one for everyone to be able to use straight away and use it up until they get their charisma gear where they can upgrade into different pets. Now the differences between the pets is they'll have certain abilities. Now there'll be cheer, which gives you an actual buff to yourself, the character. And then there are actual enchants, which give bonuses sometimes to you, but not most of the time. Most of the time it just gives a buff to the actual pet you have out. So when this actually hits, the cunning attack will actually raise the crit rate of the fox and not yourself. And then it has a 30% chance of activating the following debuff. Adds 80% of attack as bleed damage every 2 seconds for 8 seconds, but that is for the pet, not for you. Now, in my opinion, these pets aren't very good because you are doing most of the damage. The pets don't really do as much as could be seen as good. You're going to be wanting to look for those cheers, and there are several pets later on which I'll show you which has abilities that will actually is from the pet, and it affects the pet's attack, but it also affects you because it gives debuffs to the actual monsters you're attacking. A lot of the monsters you will be getting will just be higher versions, higher levels of what you already have. They will not increase the buff. It will just increase the stats of the actual pet itself, which does not matter. So if you want to have a rabbit, or you want to have a squirrel, or you want to have the hedgehog or whatever, it doesn't really upgrade much other than the stats of the actual pet itself when you go to higher levels. It requires more charisma, but it does not change anything except for the base stats of the pet. A lot of these have the same actual abilities. You'll have like sharp teeth, which is the same as a wolf, and the badger has the same one. Then you have things like the bear. Now the bear is going to be very good in PvP. The bear is going to be very good in PvE, as it will take aggro from you. It also has a stun and a knockback. So when this actual pet hits you in PvP, it will knock you back, it will stun you, stop you from being able to do what you're doing at the time. It is quite a good pet, and it will aggro everything when it comes into PvE. It increases its own physical defense. It's not increasing yours, but the 15% chance for the knockback and the stun, now it can be quite RNG, but it is good when it does go off. There'll be other animals like the bison, for example, that have the same ability, depending on what you like the look of. Bisons, bears, boars, which I'll show you a bit later on down the line. Now, for me, for DPS, for doing the most amount of DPS that you want to be able to do in PvE, the Wormy is probably the best pet for all of your DPS to get as much DPS out as possible. When this does its acidic ooze, it decreases all defense of the target by 15% for 10 seconds. This will up significantly your DPS when it hits another monster or a player, it drops the defense significantly. Especially the more defense that a monster has or an enemy or a player has, the more defense this will actually take off, as it is based on a percentage and not an amount. It lasts for 10 seconds, which is pretty much as long as any PvP fight. It is very, very good in PvE. This is going to be your go-to PvE pet, in my opinion, my humble opinion. Now we get into the more tanky type pets, where these guys are going to be taking your aggro. These pets actually taunt the target that's attacking them for 7 seconds. There's no chance of it. There's no chance of you getting extra aggro like with the bear and the bison. The basilisk will just take aggro for 7 seconds, so they won't be hitting you. This is going to be really good for your mages, really good for your archers, your alchemists, your ranged damage dealers. But the wormy's still going to be better for your melee stuff that can take a couple of hits. But it's definitely good for those weaker classes, especially the mage. Now, when it comes to straight stat increases of how much you're going to be doing, they're not as good because it's not a percentage. It's just a standard physical attack. There'll be the female gazelles and the male gazelles, which actually cheer to raise your physical attack by 20. It is not a large amount by any means. It does help, but it's not a massive amount. I would still pick the wormy over this physical attack increase. And you do have things like the kangaroo rat, which will raise your magic attack by 20. Again, it's not massively great, but it does help if you don't have that much in charisma. You don't have the charisma points. You don't have the charisma gear. You can get these low charisma pets and they will help you out, even though it's minimal. Now, here is another pet that's actually pretty decent for PvP. You're looking at the Azure Moth. It has a 50% chance of blinding the target for 3 seconds. This is another one that'll be pretty decent in PvP. Not so effective in PvE. I wouldn't use this pet for PvE, but for PvP, there is its uses, especially if you're fighting up against an archer or anything like that, and you're trying to range them so they can't actually attack out of the range of the blind for 3 seconds. You can quickly run out of an attack that's going to be charging up to hit you for a large amount of damage. Now, as you get further into the game, it's just the same. All the pets have the same. So it's the same from the first couple of maps as it is when you get to later on in a map. You will get the physical attack increase from the mountain ram. You'll get the knockback and the stun from the boar. And you'll get the knockback and the stun from the brown bear. And it basically just does it over and over again as you see the different monsters and the different pets that actually come out of these places. You're going to get the 3% movement speed with a snow white rabbit. You're going to get the same for the tunnel rabbit, which is a higher level. You're going to get the same from the elk, which increases the owner's physical defense by 100 and magic up by 70. This is a really good one if you're taking too many hits and you're getting hit really hard. This type of pet, like the elk, for example, will raise your defense up quite a lot. So there's another little bit of an option there for you. There are some ones later on. Not a lot of people are this far. If you get into the Howling Valley, you're looking at the vampire bats, where actually silence the target. It has a 50% chance to silence the target for 3 seconds. This will be very good in PvP as well, because all skills can be silenced. Not just magic, not just the major stuff. All skills are based on using MP, so they are all magic, and this will stop people from using abilities for 3 seconds. Now, this can be done consecutively. There is no diminishing returns, so it can be very powerful in PvP much later. But this is getting into the area where there's not a lot of people, but you'll still be seeing the same stuff coming up with the same abilities, the same knockbacks, the same stuns for different levels of stuff, but they're just higher level. So after we've gone through all of the pets that I believe are pretty good, you're looking at the rabbit for the 3% movement speed. You're looking at your male and female gazelles for your physical attack. You're looking at your boars, your bears, your bisons for the stun and knockback. Your basilisks for tanking, and the crocos later. Much later in the game, there's crocos which are pretty mental with their stats wise. And you're going to be looking for your kangaroo rats, etc. And the male deers, the female does give you magic attack increases as well when you're much lower level. Your moths for your blind for PvP. And my personal favorite that I think everyone should be using is the Azure Wormy, especially if you want to do a lot more damage. This is massive. This guy is it's probably the best pet in the game for me, is the Wormy, in my opinion. But that's probably because I'm using a sculptor, and the thing about the sculptor is the more damage, the better. So the Wormy is the one I go to because it gives me the most amount of damage. But there are other options if you don't want to run around with a Caterpie. So I hope this is able to help you decide which pet you want to go for. Remember to make the charisma gear. This is a must for your pets, and just go for the pets that will give you the most amount of support, not the most amount of damage. The damage from pets is minimal at the very least, and you're just going to be looking for things that upgrade your character for you to hit harder, for you to hit faster, for you to move faster. That is what you want to look for. Remember, you can only have a maximum of 5 pets at any one time, so you will have to delete some pets and get rid of them if you want to get a different kind of pet, and you can only bring out 1 pet at a time. And that's all we have for today. Make sure to like and sub for all of your Moonlight Sculptor content. Fly safe and avoid local chat scams.
I want to say a huge thank you to all my patrons. Without you guys, I wouldn't be able to continue doing what I'm doing. If you'd like to find out how to become a patron and how to get early access to my content, please look down in the description. Fly safe and avoid local chat scams.